Hey everybody, welcome to Each Other News. Today we're going to talk about deep fakes and how to figure out what's real and what's not real. Have the pleasure of having Nicos. He's the founder at Attestiv, and they've been working on this problem to try to help us identify the deep fakes from the real stuff. Nicos, welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you, Julian?
Very good. I'm assuming, Nicos, that you are real and I'm not talking to deep fake.
That's correct. You can definitely assume that, but you can't take it for granted anymore.
How do I know? That's what I'm going to, my next question is, how do I know you're not a deep fake? So tell me about, for those, obviously people know about deep fakes today, but what's going on in the world of deep fakes? I mean, it used to be where we could quickly see, it's not quite real, but now it's getting closer and closer to like, you got to look twice. And if you don't have that knowledge, it's hard to decipher the real from the unreal. Where are we? What's going on with deep fakes right now?
Oh, but very true. In the past couple of years, there's been an explosion of frameworks that let you create these deep fakes. And they're as simple as typing in text, typing in the person you want to put in. There's certainly more elaborate ways of doing it. But I think the thing that's changed, because these have been around for a few years, is that a lot of the attributes that people would notice, for instance, people's fingers might have six fingers for some reason, arms getting cut off.
Mm.
Strange anomalies that are visible are starting to disappear. So now we're getting these very realistic deep fakes that are super easy to create. And that's really what's changed the game here and made it a lot more difficult to discern what's real.
And you know, I would say as well. I mean, and I'm just an older population, right? If you receive, an image from your son, daughter, and it's saying, send me some money. I'm stuck in, some country, whatever. You might take it for real, right? Because you haven't really even know what deep fakes is. Could you give us a sense for what is the results happen? What's happening right now with deep fakes? Is it fooling anybody? Are people losing money because of deep fakes now, or what are we losing?
Well, we're seeing a lot of them in social media, and a lot of them are around the election, and oftentimes they're debunked immediately. And people can, because oftentimes there's a context associated, and you
Yeah.
say, well, this candidate doesn't believe in that policy, so it must be fake. And that's the type of things that sort of just fly by people. But yeah, where it gets more difficult is you get into these situations where you might catch people by surprise. So, for instance, earlier this year, a Hong Kong executive wired 25 million on the basis of a deep fake that was pretending to be his CEO. So that type of
Mm.
situation, somebody thinks they're talking to somebody else. So you have this identity theft, and perhaps there's now fraud associated. There's a phishing attack. There's some type of fraud associated with it. And that's really the bigger fear with deepfakes. So you take somebody like a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk and you create these videos that say, here's the investment opportunity of a lifetime. And some people are apt to believe it.
Mm. It's on top of that, the political landscape in changing the narrative, right? In people who are just digesting this content continuously, right? So suggesting alternative narratives is just as dangerous as somebody sending money over the line, right? I mean, the impact of this is quite extraordinary, isn't it?
It is. It is. Essentially, you can make anybody say anything. And that's the danger here, is that you can create these alternative narratives. And again, it's somewhere like politics where people may have already made a decision, particularly as it relates to the election.
Mm.
It's almost as if people are not going to change their decision no matter what. But on the other hand, again, it's these other situations where you might take a race from some less well-known candidate, and suddenly all of this misinformation is put out there, and people don't know what to believe.
Without a doubt, it's a massive challenge for humans moving forward. But so you've got a tool apparently that helps us to, navigate this. First of all, how did the idea come about, and how does the tool work?
Well, I've actually been in data storage, data protection, and data security for the last, let's say over 20 years. But we've been doing this for a while, and what we've kind of heard at the sort of tail end of the last company that I worked for was, well, how do we know this is real? How do we know this hasn't been modified in some way? And we just saw the opportunity there for fraud. Deepfakes were something new. They were a tool of the hackers and the graphic artists and others, the Photoshop experts who could alter things. And it was viewed as kind of the realm of these specialist hackers and so forth. But now it's become mainstream. So as we started seeing this capability become mainstream, we started looking at industries hard hit by fraud, like insurance, like financial services. And these industries were relying on self-service photos. So for instance, you get into a fender bender on your car, and a lot of insurance companies will ask you, the policyholder, to send the photos. And then there's a degree of trust there that you don't alter these photos. But with all of the tools available today, it becomes easy. And that's where we got our start. And that was before things really blew out with OpenAI. And now you have DALL-E, you have Sora, you have these video frameworks, these photo frameworks like Midjourney that produce very, very realistic photos. And that's where things really got interesting for us and maybe scary for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I can imagine people, trying to fool insurance companies and taking pictures, because that's what they do. Hey, you have a problem with your windshield, take a picture, send it to me, whatever. And it's always a challenge because one of our events that we did, we had our keynote speaker is a sales coach, and he was able to, with AI and his this deep fake thing, change his voice to speak multiple languages. So he spoke German and Japanese and whatever. And I'm going, I know for sure you don't speak any of those languages. But what really, really intrigued me is it had the tone. It had his voice. So if I was listening to his voice, I know his voice, then I say, wow, that's actually you speaking that language. So deepfakes is not just visual. They're actually able to get the actual voice and your tone as well, right? Which is, kind of creepy, isn't it?
It does get creepy. Again, imagine getting a phone call from a family
Yes.
member saying that, well, I lost my phone, but I'm stuck here. Can you please send me some money? And if it sounds exactly like them, a lot of people will, in fact, think it's real.
So we got a problem, and it's going to get worse. How are you solving this problem, Nicos?
Now, well, we're solving it through analysis that runs at scale in near real time. So essentially, we plug into frameworks, starting with things like insurance, where they handle hundreds of millions, billions of photos a year. We scan them and determine if something is potentially suspicious. So we flag these items, whether they're photos, documents, or videos, for further investigation. While that was interesting as we were doing it in insurance, it seems to apply more to a lot of industries now that consume media for a variety of reasons. And, whether it's financial services or whether it's just, think of it as a cybersecurity threat. You get on the next Zoom call and your boss comes on, he or she asks you to do certain things. Um, how do you know it's real? How do you know this is really your boss? And oftentimes people resort to this two-factor authentication by word of mouth. I'm going to ask you some questions that only you know the answer. And that happened, for instance, to Ferrari a couple of months ago, where the CEO came on a conference call, and somebody was smart enough to ask a few questions, couldn't answer, and they said, wait a second, this isn't real.
So you really have to dig deeper. I guess the situation is that you really gotta question what your eyes and ears see and hear. because it could be not what you think it is, right? But is there a simple way? Like I know there's some talks about with social media, so they have to identify this is now AI powered. I know we create an icon for our content that says no AI here. Like we have no AI generated content. We just wanted to make that very, very clear. We're real. But at the end of the day, it's like it's not difficult to do, right? And the challenge is like who else is going to do this and for what reason, right? What's the purpose? Is it going to hurt somebody? The fun parts in social media where you see AI doing some crazy stuff, but then you get to see, wow, that's really doesn't look like a flood. That looks like a disaster. And so they're exaggerating the message. And I'm just wondering if someone looks at it from an unskilled, mindset, that could say, wow, that's pretty bad. So maybe I'll send some money, to help those flood victims or whatever that is, right? How can you, for layman people out there, what should we look for to give us some, hey, this could be a problem?
Yeah, and it's getting harder and harder, but there's sort of a set of prescriptive ways to look at it. Certainly, if you can look for visual anomalies, sometimes the eyes are a giveaway because they're not blinking properly, or perhaps again there might be digits missing on fingers and things of that nature where the AI hasn't been able to, uh, you know,
Yeah.
create a realistic impression. So there's a lot of those. Sometimes the voice can sound a little strange compared to what you're used to, but all of those are changing now, and you really have to look at things also from a point of view of context. Like, is this believable? Should I question this? Should I look at other sources? And that's really your best bet. If you're not using AI tools like what we do at Attestiv, which can give you a score. So if you have a score and it says, hey, this thing could be malicious, then you have something immediately that you can act on. But in the absence of that, you have to verify with other sources. Say, did this really happen? Did this flood really happen? Let
Mm.
me go check with some other sources. And sure enough, maybe it didn't.
Boy, we were in for a whole different ride here, my friend. And so, with your solution, so as a company, I spin up your solution,
Mhm.
and the content that's coming in, you sort of, I don't know, you scan it, and then you score it. So I know, hey, there's a 90% probability it's fake, or how does that work exactly?
No, that's exactly right. We score it from 0 to 100.
Okay.
And you can interpret that as a percentage probability that this is fake. So anything that's scoring 90 is very suspicious. We typically have a threshold of about 50. So anything over 50 is suspicious. And it all depends on how paranoid you are. And it sort of applies differently to different industries. And we're a B2B company for the most part, though our products are all available online, and you can access them as a consumer too, because this problem is so widespread. But on the other hand, we have APIs that integrate into products, and then our customers, which are our reseller and distributor partners, may set the threshold depending on the industry. So in the insurance industry, you probably want to err on the side of being less paranoid, and
Mm.
avoid any false positives, because sometimes things are altered in a non-malicious manner. I mean, we know Photoshop, people can
Mm.
resize things, and we catch signs of all of those. So sometimes you want to be less paranoid, and maybe if you're reporting the news where your reputation is at stake, you want to be a little more paranoid and at
Mm.
least pull things aside and analyze them and say, wait a second, why does this have a 50% chance of being fake? So we provide all of those tools and APIs, and we make the integration seamless so it works with systems that people are already using.
How fast does it work, Nicos? It's like, so I plug it in, I'm getting all this stuff coming into my system, and I got this image of a flood somewhere, like whatever. How quickly does it give me that score?
Photos come back in 5 seconds or less,
Okay.
depending on the size of the photo, and they all get processed using GPUs in the cloud. So it's very fast. It all happens concurrently. With videos, We do process videos at about double the speed of the video. So if you're looking at a 2-minute video, it might take a minute to go through the whole video. But then, of course, you can start going through it right away. So
Right.
the idea is if you're on a Zoom call, you only need a small sample in order
Mm.
to determine, hey, wait a second, there's something wrong with this.
Right. And for documents that everybody sends contracts, right? You
Mhm.
get an agreement comes back and maybe it's changed, midstream. I don't know. How what is it? You have a template of the original and you compare the changes because sending contracts back and forth, people do make changes, right? And then they send it back and you send it back and until there's a final contract. How do you manage the documents there?
Yeah, and that can be trickier sometimes, but we typically look for alterations and alterations that are caused by editors, by sort of editors that a publisher wouldn't use. So,
Mm,
and then we look for edits and inconsistencies. So sort of the visual anomalies, but also checking to see if something has changed from its original form. So while that catches a lot of this document fraud as well, certainly there are other methods such as deepfakes too, which can create these
mm.
documents from scratch. At which point you're also reliant on outside verification. So you want to verify perhaps with a registry. If you have a perfect looking driver's license, you want to verify with the registry. You still want to verify with the registry that it's real.
What a world we're living in right now, Nicos, and it seems like it's going to get a little crazier. So, what do you want, Nicos? You get the last word. What do you want the channel partners to know about your solution? Because you're offering this to channel partners so they can then go and offer this to their customers, right? To help to at least, score if for anything else, give a score on the content that you're receiving. What do you want them to know?
Well, I think what's happening is this is becoming a necessary part of every cybersecurity solution. So there's a lot of uh, channel providers who are selling cybersecurity solutions, and a lot of their customers are often asking, well, what can you do about deepfakes? And a lot of the cybersecurity companies today are a little bit flat-footed about it because
Mm,
they have ways to guard against active threats, but these are a little bit more of passive social engineered type of threats. So it's something new. So we can provide something that fills the gap there in terms of cybersecurity. And then also any industries that are hard hit by fraud, whether it's insurance, any industry that processes a lot of photos, processes a lot of documents, you have this risk of potential fraud. And we provide products that can mitigate that risk.
yeah, I know. The worst thing that a news organization can do is publish a photo that is incorrect. That's been altered with wrong people inside, wrong backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you do have to be careful. Due diligence is complicated. It seems like what you do is you help them to at least mediate this to a large degree. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and largely regarding their reputation, right? I mean, I think that's what it's all about is nobody wants to be duped, especially publicly. So this is where Attestiv comes in.
Absolutely. What's the website address for people to learn more, Nikos?
It's attestiv.com.
All right. And how do you spell it just for people who don't have
It's
the words?
ATTESTIV.com.
Check it
And
out,
you can
folks.
also
Yeah.
and also if you want to try it out with videos, you can go to video.attestiv.com and sign up right away. We have a free tier. So we like it when our customers try things out because then they can experience it firsthand.
Wow, that's great. Look, I mean, I think the world out there is slowly getting to grips with deep fakes. We all think we could spot them, and to a degree, we're at that stage. But I think we're now at the cliff, if you will, right? That edge where it might be a little bit more difficult. I know I have to look at some second takes sometimes when I see some things, and I'm just looking to see, wow, it's getting really better, and I'm saying, wow, that's quite interesting. So at some point, especially for folks who are not quite up to speed, you need something like this to at least put a kind of a layer on it of protection because not everybody is going to be able to identify the anomalies. And so you got to be careful here, right?
Absolutely. And it's getting harder and harder. So that's why we brought these tools forward. And I think now is the time, if you're a business that cares about whether it's reputation or the threat of fraud, now is the time to consider these types of frameworks.
There you have it, folks. Go check it out to that website so you can at least play around with it and let us know what you think. Thank you, Nicos. It's been a pleasure. Awesome product.
Thank you, Julian.